Did you know that the Mbere community have a reputation for being daredevils, venturing into the lion's den, so to speak? And that is exactly what a son of the Mbere, Justin Muturi, seems to have done, because he's all over the news and he has told us he is not resigning. And so far, the appointing authority has not yet fired him, which tells us a lot, doesn't it? Anyway, welcome to my show today, Moto Sana Kama Pasi ya Makaa, where we're going to venture into those questions which people are not asking. We're going to discuss those serious, some of them critical, others deadly issues that nobody is talking about so far. Regulars on this channel will already know some of the questions we raised very early on, have been answered, like Muturi's real motive, his future political ambitions. In fact, Muturi answered them directly when he told the press that he is soon retiring, walking away from politics when the time comes. You know, those last few words in his statement are very pregnant with meaning. I'm retiring from politics very soon when the time comes. Anyway, Bwana Muturi made me laugh when he said that he's not interested in being governor of Embu, like people are saying. Why? Because he doesn't want to deal with village tyrants. The MCs are village tyrants who make your work very difficult. He doesn't want to deal with such people. And therefore, he is not interested in being Embu governor. Anyway, let us get away from the sideshows and get into the nitty-gritty of the most important, the most game-changing, breaking and developing story in Kenyan politics at the moment. And today, please allow me to do it a little differently. We will start with a bird's eye view. We'll send a drone up there to look down and see what is really happening. You know, when you get a full picture or the big picture of things, it becomes much easier to understand the small details. What has happened here is that Dr. William Samoei Ruto has put all of us in a time machine and taken us back in time to the 90s. There used to be a man called Makto and another guy called Barengetung. I can't even pronounce his name properly. And those people remind me very much of characters like Oscar Sudi and Cherargei. We also had other characters like J.J. Kamodo, Joseph Kamodo, the KANU Party Secretary General, and of course also a legislator, who is a carbon copy of a man called Kimani Ichung'wah. And then of course, at the center of the action, we used to have the dreaded special branch, who used to arrest people, abduct people, for political reasons and nothing else. Well, today, we have been told by two insiders, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and more recently, Justin Muturi, that our National Intelligence Service is doing exactly what the special branch was doing in the 70s, 80s and 90s. Now, according to my knowledge of the Kenyan Constitution, the National Intelligence Service has no powers to arrest anybody. Those who crafted the 2010 Constitution were very emphatic and careful about that, based on the notorious work of the infamous special branch in the 70s, 80s and 90s. Now, when something is in the Constitution, it becomes that much more difficult to do your own things. Because what this means is that you cannot allocate a budget, for instance, for officers to interrogate people, or cells to keep people, etc., etc. That is what I knew, or rather that is what I thought I knew. Surprise, surprise, Kumekucha. I discovered, or rather it was brought to my attention, that in 2014, who was the president in 2014? Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. And who was the very influential, powerful deputy president who was running everything? William Samoei Ruto. It was brought to my attention that in 2014, some security bills were quickly rushed through Parliament, which returned arresting powers to the National Intelligence Service, which is against the very spirit of our 2010 Constitution. Bila kizungu mingi, that move took us back to the Moi days. And what I don't want to believe is that it was that easy to give the NIS the arresting powers back. Okay? Anyway, bottom line, we are back to the 80s and 90s. And I assure you, I can make dozens of videos giving you very accurate parallels of those days and what is happening today. Now, one of the very powerful things about going back to history is that you're able to see how the whole game ended, and therefore you're able to very accurately predict how the very same game being played today will end. It's very easy. Although I must admit, there are few things which are very, very different. For instance, Ruto is not Moi. No. Moi was slow to act. Moi was very strategic. And many things Moi did worked. And something else very important. Although Moi never forgot, he was not vengeful. In fact, many times, he was forgiving. The same cannot be said for Kasongo. Definitely not. Another difference. Yours truly, Chris Kumekucha, is not a young man. Yeah, 20-something. You know, for a brief moment, I was very excited. I thought I had actually been taken back in time. So I was expecting my young body back, my energy, my kiherehere. And I knew, with the knowledge I have today, which I didn't have then, I will be unstoppable. However, sadly, I was rudely brought back to reality. Yes, we are back in the 80s and 90s, but my body is not back to the 80s and 90s body that even used to play international rugby. Hey, now, this time machine manenos is very important because of what we are going to dive into right now. Something more than fascinating. The affidavit of one Justin Muturi. Now, from the onset, let us be clear about a few things. An affidavit is not a composition, like the composition you wrote in school. No! An affidavit is not a well-researched article in the press that reveals and exposes. No, it's not. An affidavit is a legal document. It is a court document. Very important to note. It can be used in a court of law as evidence. And it is sworn under oath. And so if somebody swearing the affidavit makes the mistake of thinking it is just another composition, it is solid evidence to get you convicted of perjury, which in Kenya will get you 7 years in jail. So this is a serious document. So this is a serious legal document. We have had several of these things in recent times, so much so that we in the press have forgotten to emphasize how serious something called an affidavit is. it is very serious. Even if you think you've gotten away with it, 30 years from today, somebody can pull out your affidavit from court documents and send you to jail. Yeah? And you will not be able to say, I was young and reckless then, so I made a mistake. So please let the law forgive me. No. So, Justin Muturi swore to a very lengthy affidavit. And this document had such sensitive stuff inside it. You know, he very casually handed over copies to the press. He didn't say anything. But back in the newsroom, when people started reading it, they said, Allah. And they even had to call him, get him on the phone, to confirm some things very sensitive, very heavy in that affidavit. Now I can hear somebody impatiently saying, what is wrong with Kumekucha? What is the big deal about an affidavit? I will tell you. This Justin Muturi affidavit is capable of bringing the William Samoei Ruto regime, his entire government, crashing down. Oh yes, you heard me. That is how serious this thing is. Let's delve into it immediately. Or rather the highlights, which are just crazy. Now on June 22nd, Justin Muturi, who was then the Attorney General, the AG of the government of the Republic of Kenya, received a call from his daughter-in-law, informing him that his son had been abducted. Now June the 22nd was a Saturday, and just a mere 3 days before the historic, very dramatic, crazy invasion of Parliament by the Gen Zs, which was the height, the climax of the Gen Z protests. That's an important point to keep in mind vis-a-vis the involvement of the National Intelligence Service. Now we need to understand that as AG of the country, there are few people who are on your phone's speed dial. Okay? And most of these characters are people in the security system. Watu wakubwa wa security. NIS boss, DCI boss, KDF boss, President of the Republic of Kenya, etc., etc. And this is not for show. This is because of the nature of the work of this office. Yeah, what you're supposed to do. You are the government's chief legal advisor. And therefore, stuff happens all the time, even at midnight, 3 a.m., yeah, where you need to be consulted. And therefore, I'm speculating, in Bwana Muturi's mind, he must have thought, this is something which will take about 2 minutes for me to sort out. 5 minutes, tops. But lo and behold, a couple of hours later, he was even more puzzled than he had been when this whole drama started. The country's chief spy refused to pick his call. The NIS boss, Nuruddin Haji, he called him a few times. The guy did not pick. Hey. But other bosses picked. The Inspector General of Police told him he had no idea. But he would put his boys on high alert. Yeah, and if he hears anything, he would quickly get back to the AG. The Cabinet Secretary, Interior, who at that time was Kithure Kindiki, picked and told him he had no idea who was holding his son. Based on his full control of all security organs in the country, he did not know anything about this incident. And he was sure the government and all its security organs, including the NIS, were not involved in the abduction of Leslie Muturi, the son of the AG then. And now, based on the revelations in this affidavit, Bwana Muturi must have really panicked. And so he swung into action. Luckily, where it happened, there was access to CCTV footage, which revealed that the vehicles that had been used to pick up his son were from the anti-terrorism unit. But even those guys were not aware. They didn't know what was happening. And then he had a breakthrough. A friend informed him that actually his son had been taken by the NIS, the National Intelligence Service. Ndio, kwanza ako hapa, nimemuona. He's here. I have seen him. What? And so Muturi sends a WhatsApp message to the President of the Republic of Kenya. And based on previous communications, he is very sure that the President has seen his message. But the President does not respond. And therefore Muturi decides to head straight to State House. When he arrives at State House, the President is having lunch with two politicians. And one of those politicians is Mwangi Kiunjuri. And so Muturi waits and waits, and finally is able to see the President, who according to the affidavit tells him something very interesting, especially considering the circumstances. You are a father, your son has disappeared, the emotions involved, etc., etc. Still, the President, according to this affidavit, tells Muturi something very interesting. He says he received so many messages that it seems his phone crashed. Hey. What? Please let me not say anything more about that. And so the President gets onto the telephone with the Director General of the National Intelligence Service, Bwana Nuruddin Haji. You know there are very many phones in State House. There are even some landlines called direct lines, which are designed to communicate only with one person. I'm emphasizing that so that some of us do not fall for stories ajaba from some people. Stories ajaba like, if his phone crashed, what was he using to call so-and-so? I'm sure most of you know what I'm talking about. And the NIS boss confirms that indeed he is holding Justin Muturi's son, Leslie. Now, let us not forget that this is the President of the Republic of Kenya calling one of his juniors. Okay? Let's not forget that chain of command. Okay? And so Haji tells the President that the young man will be released within the hour. And indeed, approximately within 1 hour, Leslie, the son of Justin Muturi, is released. And that crisis for the Muturi family comes to an end. I'm sure there's a lot of relief from the father, and especially from his mother. I'm certain. It is not in the affidavit, but I believe it goes without saying. Now, on the same day when Muturi's son was abducted, there were a few other young people who were abducted on the same day. People like Peter Masharia, Emmanuel Mukuria. To date, they have never, ever been seen. Nobody knows where they are. Nobody knows if they're still on the planet or they have departed to the next life. Nobody knows. Also picked up on the same day, wait for this one, was a very famous activist, Denzel Omondi. Now I'm sure you remember what happened to Denzel Omondi. He was found all right, but he was not alive. In fact, his remains were found floating, in a pool of water at the bottom of a quarry. Okay? Hey, folks, this heavy legal document is lethal. It is something that can cause people like the ICC in the International Criminal Court at The Hague to start taking action, to take steps towards a prosecution. This document, this legal document, is so lethal, it is enough to bring down the government of William Samoei Ruto. Now, I'm aware that there are some very senior cronies of Ruto, people like Oscar Sudi, who obviously do not see it like this. I urge you to step back, analyze carefully, and you'll see what I'm talking about. This is a very lethal document. Okay? But let's start breaking it down. And the first question I'd like to ask is the following. This Bwana Justin Muturi is a lawyer. He understands the law. Did he not break the law by coming out and being so explicit, telling us so many government secrets in this affidavit? Did he not break the law? Yeah. I'm of course talking about the Official Secrets Act, yeah, which applies in many countries, even Western countries. Yeah, if you've been following the news, you will know that some whistleblowers have been prosecuted, yeah, based on the Official Secrets Act in Great Britain. Yeah. So, wasn't Muturi breaking the law in spilling the beans? Now, if there is something we already know and are very sure about, it is the fact that Bwana Muturi did not make a rash decision here. That affidavit was very long. He had plenty of time to think and rethink his actions. Okay? And therefore we must assume that he found a loophole, yeah, something to use to protect himself. Okay? Now, the Official Secrets Act can be superseded if there is a serious crime that was committed. And so, in this instance, was there a serious crime committed? Were there serious crimes committed? In my opinion, and I'm not a lawyer, I have no legal training, but in my opinion, I think there was. And I believe that is the protection Bwana Muturi, yeah, has concerning that particular aspect. And there is more. I am sure Kenyans remember that Bwana Gachagua on June 26th blamed the National Intelligence Service, he was still the Deputy President then, laid blame on the National Intelligence Service for the abductions of young Kenyans. And therefore, Bwana Muturi's affidavit is the second witness, if I can put it like that, who has come out telling us exactly the same thing. Okay? That cannot be a good thing for the would-be defendants in this issue. My question number 2, isn't this whole Maneno's a contradiction? Because the same Gachagua has told us that the person who heads the abduction unit sits on one of the high floors of a building in town. Is it the 21st or 22nd? And he has even given us the first name. They're called Abel. Later on, another blogger has filled in the dots and given us the full name. So which is which? Is it Abel or is it the NIS? That's my question. And I'm going to answer it very briefly, very directly, bila kizungu mingi. The world over, we now know that government security organs very frequently use contractors. Sometimes the contractors can be some mercenaries to go somewhere to do something. Everybody uses them. And therefore, in this particular instance, it is highly likely, because of the scope of this abduction operations, that some contractors have been used. And that would neatly explain the other things we've been told. For instance, that there's some foreigners who are members of this group. I mean, we've been told so many things. That would neatly explain everything. And it fits in like a glove with the highly sensitive contents of my latest special report, yeah, which goes deeper than anybody has ever gone into this abduction unit, okay? But we'll talk some more about that later. Let's carry on. Question number 3. Too many people have come out and said in recent days, even in recent hours, they have come out and said that the Tower of Babel is crumbling. Yeah? What exactly do they mean? Yeah? Because they're not giving us enough details. They're just saying that this thing from the Bible story is crumbling. What do they mean? Again, I will avoid kizungu mingi and give a very simple answer to that question. Okay? At the moment, the biggest problem the government of Kenya has are not the Gen Z, not the opposition, if it exists, not Raila Odinga. No. The biggest problem they have is that they have some insiders who are now singing, they're talking, they're revealing, they're exposing. Of course, those insiders are former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and current Cabinet Secretary Justin Muturi. You know, there is nothing more dangerous to you. Yeah, there is nothing which will finish you as quickly as insiders. People who are within your inner circle. People who are inside the house. They know where the kitchen is. They know where the knives are kept. They know where the spices are kept, etc., etc. They know where the main switch for the electricity is, etc., etc. Those are very dangerous people. And this is exactly what has happened to the Ruto regime. And that is why people are saying the Tower of Babel is already crumbling, is coming down very fast. The next question: what is the most dangerous thing legally about Justin Muturi's affidavit? Okay, the answer, and this should be obvious, the most dangerous thing about those revelations by an insider, okay, is that there is a clear link. There is clear evidence of involvement of the President of the Republic of Kenya, William Samoei Ruto, in the illegal, against our constitution, abductions. Oh yes, and let us get this very clear. If your son commits a crime, a serious crime, abducts somebody's child, and the parent of that child comes to your house, and you talk to your son, and your son says, yes, I've abducted him, and you instruct your son to release that person they have abducted, are you innocent? Are you? Do you have nothing to do with that crime? Are your hands clean? Of course not. Of course not. You are responsible for your son. And in a government setup it is even worse, because the buck stops on the table, on the desk of the president. And therefore, he has no defense at all in this abduction manenos, legally speaking. Granted, he is currently protected. However, he is not going to remain president forever. Yeah. So in my opinion, that is the most deadly, lethal thing legally in this very detailed affidavit of Justin Muturi. You know, in my opinion, it is not an accident. It is not a coincidence. All these events which are happening in Kenya, and they're happening so quickly, it is not an accident, and it is not a coincidence that the Tanzanian government, Salama wa Taifa, would choose to come into Kenya and seek assistance from the abduction unit to take back into their country an activist against that government. And of all people, they choose a character like this Maria lady. Of all people, they choose her. Now you remember what happened in that case? She was released within 4 hours. What kind of calls do you think were made? Wakubwa gani walipiga simu hapa na pale so that she was released so quickly? And everything had been set up. The vehicle to transfer very quickly across the border and back to Dar es Salaam was ready. What stopped it? Ask yourself those questions. And indeed they are fully answered in my latest weekly intelligence briefing number 123, which is out. And there is even more sensitive inside information in my latest special report on this abduction unit. I also talk about this Maria case. Yeah, the real power behind Maria. It will shock you to your bones. And there are many other funny things that have been happening. Former President Uhuru Kenyatta was in exactly the same situation as Ruto found himself with Gachagua. But Uhuru wisely decided not to impeach Ruto. Yeah? He carefully weighed his options, he listened to his advisors, and he decided to vumilia, persevere, all that nonsense he was getting from his deputy president. However, Ruto in the same situation acted very quickly and quickly impeached Rigathi Gachagua without even an IEBC being in place, which clearly is not legal. Anyway, he went ahead and impeached Gachagua. Now it is in the public domain that President Ruto and his insiders, if there's anything they really regret, they regret having impeached Gachagua. That thing has caused them so many problems. It has caused them so much grief. It's not worth it. Yeah? That was a terrible blunder. In my opinion, that was not an accident. Okay? Neither was it a coincidence. And neither was the fact that a sitting AG, Justin Muturi then, would have his own son abducted. That was not an accident. So that he would have all the inside information to include in his affidavit, which he has now revealed to the Kenyan public. It is in the public domain, giving us so much confirmed, verified information on what is really happening with these abductions. That is not an accident. And remember that we're in the season of exposure. All these things happening, according to me, if you asked me, all these things happening are the hand of the Almighty God to expose, to reveal everything, even as he judges Kenya, even as he himself personally drains the swamp. And what we're going to get on the other side after we cross this bridge will be a brand new, unrecognizable Kenya. Yeah? And never forget that the hand of Almighty God has been on this all the time. Now, of course, I'm aware, and I think we should all be aware, that we are entering a very dark period, very dark chapter in our history. I'm just trying to look at the big picture. I'm trying to console myself with what is going to happen after, what is on the other side of the bridge, for those of us who God will mercifully allow to cross on the other side. That is the truth. And therefore, my friends, we should continue expecting, going forward, even more shocking revelations. This is a very bad time, as I keep on saying. This is a very bad time to do funny things, even in your personal life. If you're having an affair with another woman and you're married, this is the wrong time. This is the very wrong time, because this is a season of exposure. And I think we have all seen that very clearly right now. Hey, you know, I would strongly advise that you go through this video again, yeah, so that you fully grasp the very heavy issues, heavy manenos we're talking about here. And so that you fully understand that I'm not exaggerating. I'm not telling a lie when I say this Muturi dossier is enough to bring down the Ruto government. Just the dossier by itself, nothing else. Now, very quickly before I go, Weekly Intelligence Briefings number 123, as I've already said, is out. Please check for it in your inbox. If you haven't received it, shoot me a quick email using the email address you see on your screens right now. Of course, this only applies if you're already a subscriber. But then you also have my highly sensitive special report, which if you purchase, I will give you a full year subscription to my weekly intelligence briefing. That will be the extra advantage. And today I have the most amazing offer. For the next 24 hours, you can be able to get my highly sensitive special report. Wait for this one. For only Kenya shillings 2,999. So please rush. This offer is strictly for the next 24 hours. And then poof, it's gone. Okay? So please take full advantage of it. You can see details on your screens right now on what you need to do. This special report is so sensitive that its audience is very limited. Okay? So please act quickly and be amongst the few people who actually get this very shell-shocking information that took me quite some time to research and put together. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.